You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to Monday evening's instalment of Parasearch Radio's broadcasting spectrum. Tonight I am Kerry Greenaway and I'm joined in the studio by our latest addition to the Parasearch team, and that is the lovely Rooney. Good evening, Kaz.
Good evening, Kerry.
And how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Now, Kaz, you've only been on a couple of shows with us so far, and it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you because you can barely get a word in edgeways when me and Paul and we have a guest. It's been a bit bemusing for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has a bit.
So we thought we'd do a little pop-up show, being as our lovely Jay and Teresa are a little bit tied up with work at the moment, and let people get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, me.
Yes, it's all about you, my little lovey. So first of all, Kaz, tell me about yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from? And what is it you do?
Okay. I do come from Scotland. I come from a little town in Scotland called Port Glasgow, actually, but I live in Doncaster. Basically, I'm a full-time mum. When I'm not a mum, I run my paranormal investigation group. That's basically, the paranormal stuff is basically something that I've kind of grew up with. So it seemed a natural progression for me to set up my own group.
And what's your group called?
Entity Seekers UK.
Okay. And have you done much investigating?
We've done a few, yeah. But we want to do an awful lot more. Unfortunately, we're finding two of the team members are tied up quite a lot at the moment, so I'm doing a fair bit of the work at the moment. But we do have a few investigations coming up.
Okay, so where have you investigated?
East Drive to Grey Street. We've been just random places. I've been to abandoned buildings, we've been to graveyards, we've been World War II bunker, that was interesting. Mm-hmm. We just kind of go wherever we can go, basically.
Okay, so what's the best place you've investigated so far?
I would have to say it was actually a woods near me, and it's called Sandalbeat Woods, or the Hanging Woods as it's known as. That was a really good night. We did get some really good EVPs, and we did get... That's the thing, I'm a sensitive, so we had a sense that there was a man and woman there, but they've basically walked with us the whole way through that woods that night, and it was just a really interesting night. It's a really interesting place to be, but I don't like going into woods basically. I think there's too many places for people to hide in woods. I don't like it. But I was really comfortable in there. We had a really good night in there, actually.
I love a wood, me. I'm not going to lie. I have to say I'm a sucker for a wood in the middle of the night. Does that make me a little weird?
I think they're a bit creepy. Don't you? They can be kind of creepy because there's too many places for people to hide. You just don't know who's in there. So,
but to be fair, if there's someone hiding in the woods, they can be generally quite noisy.
They could be, but I don't know. It's just me. I'm not a woody kind of person. I'm not one for... Which is interesting because I love Pendle Hill. Went to Pendle Hill the other week and absolutely loved it. I want to go back there. So...
It's on my bucket list, Pendle Hill, I'm not going to lie. I keep saying I'm not going to lie. Apparently I say that an awful lot, so I do apologise. Now, Ashley Nibb is in our chat room. He asked, how did your paranormal journey begin?
Oh, crikey. This is a strange one because I really have to go back with this. My mum and dad, wonderful people, raised us as Roman Catholic. But from as young as I can remember, I've had this interest in spirit. And the only way I can really actually explain it, Kerry, is I've never doubted that spirit were there. So, I mean, when you're young, as you do, your parents whatever your parents tell you, you're going to believe. So if your mum and dad said to you, there's no such thing as spirits, you'll grow up believing there's no such thing as spirits. My dad has always told me there's no such thing as spirits. And I've always argued with him about it since I was young. So it's something that was just kind of there. And as I got older and older, it kind of progressed where I wanted to find out more. So that's what I did.
Okay.
Tried to find out more.
So did you have any paranormal experiences or unexplained instances when you were younger that sort of made you think that?
Well, looking back, my mum actually said to me, she says, you know how little children can have imaginary friends? She says, it wasn't you had an imaginary friend. She went, but we find you just talking into thin air. And would ask who you're talking to and you would just kind of point and say him or her or not say a name or whatever. And I think that kind of always stayed with me. I think that's where it's all kind of started. It's just, I seem to have had this knowledge from a really young age that spirit was real and that they were there, and I've never questioned that. I can't pinpoint one thing. That's the thing.
Mm. So you said you were sensitive. How does that come across to you?
I get feelings. I usually get them pretty quickly when we go to different places. Good feelings, bad feelings. If I feel that we shouldn't be in a place, I will not go. I will turn around and walk out. I've done that before. I've refused to go any further on investigations and walked away. But I just kind of get a sense when there's spirit near us. Best way I can explain it.
Do you think you're fearful then of
No.
certain spirits?
No, because they've always been around, so it's not a fear. I have 5 kids. 4 of them are teenagers and live at home with me. And it's so commonplace to them that strange things will happen wherever we live. Whatever house we've lived in, strange things have always happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so commonplace to them, they don't even question it anymore. They just go, oh, such and such happened. You go, oh, okay. So I don't have a fear, but I do. If I do have a bad feeling about a place, I won't go into it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If I feel it's something we shouldn't be in, or something that can turn nasty, I wouldn't go into it.
Okay. Yes, I'm a bit different to that one. I'm not going to lie. Now, we have another person in the chat room. It's Snarky of Oz. That's a strange name. I'm not going to... That's strange. But Snarky has asked to define sensitive. How would you define it?
I would define it as being more open and more aware of everything around you, which can include other people's moods, emotions, whatever. I'm really sensitive to that as well. People's moods can drastically alter my moods. I could be perfectly happy and walk into a room and then suddenly feel really sad, and it isn't me that's feeling sad, it's someone else, or someone else, and I pick that up. So
you're almost, well, I say almost, so you've got empathic traits there too.
Yeah.
So do you work on any visualization techniques to help control that?
What I try to do is I do try to meditate whenever I can. I used to be able to do it daily. And I'm the first to admit I don't get a chance always to do it daily now. It just depends what I'm doing day to day. But I do try to keep myself grounded as much as I can and meditate when I can, because I feel that meditation does help. It helps to keep you grounded.
Yeah, I agree with that. I ground in a different way to that. I mean, particularly after an investigation, if I've worked intensely with the energy that's been at the location, depending on the location, there is such a thing called a paranormal hangover that people get, isn't there?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced that being a sensitive yourself.
Yeah.
And the next day it can leave you really feeling off kilt. And it is a little tied into tiredness because you're up late and, emotional roller coaster that you've been on the night before. There's a little bit of that to it. But there is definitely a format of having to ground yourself and having to centre yourself after an investigation. And it was I don't know about you, but I learnt it the hard way. What about yourself?
Luckily, I have some very good friends. One friend who is actually a medium has really taught me quite a bit over years, and she always said to me when investigating, what I tend to do is I open and then I'll do a protection bubble, but I always close before I leave. Now, I like to do that with whoever's there at the investigation with us, but one of our team members, Julian, doesn't believe in doing that and won't take part. Now, I won't force anyone to take part in it, but I feel it's important. I feel you have to do that. I feel you have to, if you're going into an investigation, you do have to open up, but you do also have to protect yourself, and most importantly, you do have to close down before you leave. You can't walk away from an investigation still wide open.
I agree with that as well.
Yeah, but like I said, one of our teammates does not agree with that. He says it does no use whatsoever, so he doesn't participate at all.
I think it does depend on how you're working.
Yeah.
If you're a sensitive or you're psychic or you're working on a mediumistic level or you're working with any form of energy tool on a spiritual front, then it is that mental signal to yourself that you're open and ready to receive.
Yeah.
It gives your guides their cue, as it were, to sort of step forward. And then, like you say, at the end of an investigation, it's giving yourself that mental signal that that's it now, you're done. Thanking whoever or whatever you've contacted, if you've contacted anybody, and your guides that that's it now, thanks, I'm now back to me. You know what I mean? And I'm not working energetically anymore. As I say, I have learnt the hard way, and I'm a great advocate of opening and closing. And if I'm out with the public, I'll always offer it, like shields of protection and stuff like that for people if they want it. Like you say, not everybody does want it.
No.
But that's their responsibility. It's their self-responsibility, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not going to push my views on other people.
No.
That's the way I see it. So maybe what works for me isn't going to work for somebody else, like it won't work for Julian. That's fine. Julian has his way of doing things and I've got my way of doing things. But we still manage all to work together, so it's fine, really. I mean, he's just got his way and I've got a different way, that's all.
Yeah, and I think that's really important as well. It's really, really important to allow people to work how they wish to work. And if you can do it in a cohesive way in your team, then that's fantastic, because you've got like a bit of everything in there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Was you sceptic when you first, was you a bit like cynical and a bit sceptical when you first started investigating, or was it just a natural progression?
The thing is, I think I felt as I was growing up, I never questioned that spirit's real.
No. But
I questioned the feelings I got, the sensations I got. I have had for many, many years, well over 20 years, I get a lot of dream visits as well. And these can be from people I don't know that have passed. But I've always had that. But I think when they all first started, I did question a lot of things and think, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. It must be my imagination. And it's only over time I've learned to trust in that more. And the more I trust in it, the better it's worked. If that makes sense.
Well, it completely makes sense to me. Because I work in a very similar way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I use crystals, as we talked before the show, I use crystals and minerals, and I know when I was working, before I went into the paranormal field, I found that when I was working it would work for me, but then transferring that skill into the paranormal field, I didn't know if that was just me manifesting that at home in my crystal room, or, you know, it's taking that belief system to a next step. Do you know what I mean? And saying, like, can I then transfer that skill and that energy work into a different realm that I've not worked in before? And it's almost like a leap of faith sometimes, isn't it? It's that self-belief and that self-trust that will work in the same way, and you have to have that faith in your own ability.
Well, I mean, something that I have been told, and I've been told for years and years and years, that that I should be a medium, but I still block things to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, but I'm quite happy doing things the way I do things, so I'm happy investigating. But what I have found over the years is the more open I've been, the more I get back.
Yeah.
Do you know? And the more open you are, the more likely it is, if we go into a location, if you're more open and more relaxed with it, then you're more likely to have a better investigation as well.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. I definitely pick up more now than I did when I first started.
Yeah.
When I go out investigating, I pick up a lot more now. But that's because I've worked with a lot of different people now. I've worked with a lot of different mediums, some really strong practicing platform mediums I've been out with, who have, you know, led me through that journey. And what I find I do, I'm not a psychic vampire, which is a term that's used, but if someone's open and strong, like a fully fledged medium that's been working years, and they're open, I can open like straight away. It's almost like a piggyback on their energy. Whereas if I'm having to do it without a tool, like if I haven't got my crystals or my, you know, any of my other bits and bobs that I use, I find it incredibly difficult to open, because I'm used to opening personally with a tool. But if somebody's there open and working in a mediumistic or psychic way, and they're strong, I can use that energy to open myself. Does that make sense?
But when you find that you're open, do you find you have... What do you particularly notice that lets you know that you're open?
I just feel it. I can't explain it. It's like I then start seeing things. We talk about our third eye quite a lot, which is a chakra point that sits between your eyes, and that's where I see from. Yeah. And then I'll feel it as well. I'll feel it in energy changes, and that usually comes in through my hands. So when I'm first recce in a location, When I'm walking around, my hands are like on the go, as it were. They're out, they're stretched, they're feeling, and that's where I feel initially. And then when I start seeing, I'll start seeing from that third eye place.
Mm-hmm.
And then words will come in and, you know, images will come through that way for me. Yeah. How does it work for you?
What I find is when I'm completely open, if there's someone around, if there is a spirit around, I get the strangest thing. It's almost like there's someone behind me and they step right up to my back. It's almost like my guides just step up behind me and stand right at my back, and I can feel them right at my back. Right across my shoulders. I'll feel tightness right across my shoulders. And I know there's someone there.
Mm.
And it kind of, that's when things will start flowing a lot easier for me then, because then I'll just kind of go with it and see where it ends up, whether it's my gut feelings to go and do an EVP, I'll go and do that, or if I feel like someone else has to do all the talking, I'll leave it to them. If I feel I need to step back, I'll step back. And that's kind of the way I work, because when I'm open I can feel them almost standing right at my back. It's a really sensation, actually.
It's one of the hardest things to explain how you work, isn't it? When someone says, how do you work? It's really difficult to explain it. We've actually had Richard in the chat room. He's asking, and this is actually a really good question. When approaching the paranormal from a spiritual perspective, what are you trying to achieve? Is it purely interaction, or is it to help seek verification, I'm going to use rather than the word proof, of spirit? What are we trying to achieve on a spiritual front in the paranormal field, Kaz, basically?
Personally, for me, I feel, yes, it'd be great to get proof, if you like. But I have such a strong belief that they are there. I don't really question that. So if we get proof, that's great. But I have this weird thing. When we go to do investigations, I never research. I don't like knowing about places before I go. I'd rather just go.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So when I go, I'm interested in finding out the story about the place and the people that were there and the spirits that are there. That's what it is for me. If we get evidence along the way, that's great. And we can share that, that's great. I get really excited about that as well. But the history of it and the stories that go with the people that are there, or the spirits that are still there, interest me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I'm the same as you. I won't. I hope if I'm going to a location I don't know, I won't research it.
Yeah.
Because then I'm always doubting if I come up with something, I'm always then doubting, did I read that?
Yeah.
And has that just come from like a memory bank, as it were? So if it's an unknown location, I won't research it. If it's somewhere I've been before, and I come up with something, I find myself always going, I'm sure I've read that. I'm sure I know that. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of, I find myself doing that quite a lot. Or I'm sure I had a conversation with so-and-so about that. So I always try and sort of like balance it. Because I could have got that from spirit, but I could have already known that as well. So it's difficult to know exactly where that place has come from. So I'm the same as you. If I don't know the location, I won't research it. And what I try, when I started in the field, what I was trying to achieve was to do with the crystals. Do crystals actually have an effect in the paranormal field? Do they actually have an effect on the energy within that way to help make it easier to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the physical? And if they do help, will that help with providing that verification or proof or evidence or whatever word you want to use for it, and allow them easier energy levels to interact with us on a physical level? So that's where I started. Then obviously as time went on, I was picking stuff up and I'm feeling the energy. But because I can't prove that, because I can't say, oh, measure my hand because you're going to get a hit on your thermometer or whatever it be, because I can't prove it. it's not about proving something to anybody else. That's for me, as it were. I can tell everybody what I'm feeling. I can tell everybody where I feel the hot spots are, and where spirit is most likely to be interacting and stuff like that. But and they can be guided by that. But as an actual effective scientific investigation method, because you can't prove it, what can you say? Do you know what I mean? It's an unprovable fact. It's difficult. It's difficult to say. But so for me, when I work in the field, I like to give what I get. If it's right, fantastic. If it's wrong, okay, that's fine. That's fantastic too. Okay, I'm not right. Okay, But for me, personally, working with crystals, it's more about trying to help that energy levels and make it easier to bridge that gap. So that's what I'm trying to achieve from a spiritual perspective, is helping to raise the energy levels and bring those spirits forward and allow them a method of communicating easier with crystal energy. And basically, I use crystals as the tool to do that. Whereas a medium or a sensitive like yourself is trying to do that without a tool, basically, aren't you?
Basically, I react to the sensations I'm getting. I mean, like, you're talking about energy. My hands are always boiling hot. It wouldn't matter if I was skiing in a bikini, my hands would still be boiling hot, and I have no idea why, but apparently that's just my energy. But I literally react to, I can go into a place and I'm drawn to that room, I need to go to that space and do an EVP, or I need to do this, or I need to, and I trust that, I work with that. But it's sensation, isn't it? And you can't explain that to someone else. You can't explain, I need to go to that room because I feel I need to be in that room. You can say it, but they're not feeling what you're feeling, so they don't know how it's affecting you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if I find a particularly strong energy, I find I shake. I really am like I'm shivering. Shake is quite extraordinary. If I'm sat down, my leg goes really bad. It's really embarrassing. Here we'll go. What's wrong with your legs? Right, spirits there. They're a bit close. It's fine. Don't mind my leg. It's absolutely fine. It's quite strange when you see it. I used to get it an awful lot when I very first started reading tarot. Where when the energy was building and I was doing readings, my leg would be going 10 to the dozen. I've learned to control that now. But sometimes on an investigation, if you get a particularly strong spirit, off the leg goes again, and it's quite humorous. Many a night they've taken the mickey out of me for that one.
Well, I went to Liverpool about 3-4 weeks ago for a paranormal friend. Does like a ghost walk. And we went to St James's Garden. And we literally were in there seconds, and I was automatically being pulled in the total opposite direction from everybody else. So they wanted to go one way, and I wanted to go another way. And I'm like, and I ended up saying to them, I need to go over there, what's over there? And they went, there's something over there, but I'm not telling you what. So off I toddled on my own. And kind of poked about a bit, and I thought, no, I'll keep up with the rest of the group and I'll go back to it. But I do tend to find I get that quite a lot. I get pulled in a totally different direction.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
But
and you can't explain it, can you? It's really hard. It's really hard to explain it.
But when there's a large group, I mean, there was easily, I would say, about 25 of us there. And they're all heading in one direction. I'm like, but no, I need to go over here.
And sometimes if I'm out working in an outside location, I'll get like signposts pointing me in the right direction, which is really quite strange.
one I did have last year was 2 investigators in Sheffield were going on about this tunnel. They wanted to go to this tunnel, so we're going to this tunnel. But we're walking along this road, and again it's woods. And I kept saying, no, we need to go back. And he kept saying, no, we're going this way. And I'm going, right, okay. And we went on for a good 10 minutes. And I kept saying, no, we really need to go back. This is wrong, we need to go back. And he kept saying, no, it's fine. And he said, do you know what, stay here, to me and this other guy. And he runs up and he comes running back down and he goes, turn around, we're going the wrong way. And I thought, I told you that 10 minutes ago.
It's gotten to the point now where if I'm out with one particular team I go out with, particularly if there's people that don't know how I work, I mean, Paul Rook, he's only just starting to get a little glimpse of how I work in the field. And he goes, oh, hello, she's off. And I'll be like moving around and my hands will be going and, feeling things. And I'll be like, right, okay, getting this, I've got to go there. And hold on, I've just got to check that out and stuff like that. And he's like, what are you doing? This is how I work. Do you know what I mean? This is me working. So just let me do my thing. Then I'll settle down and then I'll be able to go, right, okay, this is what we need to do and where we need to do it. And he's just starting. So I understand exactly when you're talking, I'm thinking, I know exactly what you're talking about because I get it myself. But because I'm quite flighty, I suppose some people would call it, it looks like he said it's like watching a chicken with its head cut off. But there are methods to my madness when I work. And it's just how you work, isn't it? It's just when you're doing it, that's just how I work. Yeah, it is. The team's starting to get to know, the team has to know how you work to appreciate that and allow you to work in that way. I mean, with, so one of the other teams that I've worked with, I was incredibly blessed because they would just go, first of all, they would go in, start unpacking their techie bits and then just be like, off you go then. Go and do your thing. Yeah. And they'd just be saying to the other, and I'd just hear them go, don't worry, she's just doing her thing. You know what I mean? Just let her do her thing and then we'll get back onto it. And it's quite funny when you do it. Anyway, we just need to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll continue with this little discussion.
Hello.
Okay.
Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
And welcome back to the Pop-Up Show. Tonight I'm joined by Kaz Rooney. She's one of the latest additions to the Parasearch team. And we're finding out about Kaz. Now, Kaz, you go out investigating. We've talked about your sensitive side, working in the field. But let's talk a little bit more about investigation-wise. What is your favourite tool when you go out investigating? What tools do you use?
Well, we do have lots of techie stuff. We do have all the techie stuff. We have cameras and night vision cameras and EVPs and K2s, and we actually just invested in a CCTV system as well. But this is the thing. I mean, all the techie stuff, when I go, my favourite thing always, I won't go without my EVP recorder. And a lot of people aren't big fans of EVPs, but I do like my EVP recorder. So that's my favourite.
Excellent. And before the show, you was telling me that you sometimes just go out on a wander with your camcorder and your voice recorder, don't you? And just see what you can find.
Well, I mean, as we were talking before, like I said to you, I'd love to just go up to Edinburgh for a day. And I have just taken a camcorder, take my EVP recorder, and I've got a camera, and I just take off and just go wherever you feel like going, and you can find some really interesting places, and you can get some good stuff. It just depends on where you're going. I personally want to go to Edinburgh and do that. I didn't get a chance when I was in Scotland at the weekend, but I'm hopefully going back up in the next couple of weeks for a week, and I should be able to get a chance to do that. Because Edinburgh's a lovely place. It's really rich in history as well, so you can go to lots of lovely places up there.
Yeah, I've got so many places in the UK on my bucket list to try and get up to, and Edinburgh is definitely one of them. It is. It's one of on my bucket list. I have such a big bucket list. It's untrue though, Kaz. How about you? What about your bucket list?
I'm not sure, actually. The thing is, the one place I've always wanted to do is Waverley Hills. Problem with Waverley Hills is it's a really long plane journey, and I am not a good flyer.
That's what I said to our Jay when he said come over. I was looking at flights, and when I was like, do you realise it's going to take me this amount of time to get to you?
Well, what I have actually done is I have got as far as having a conversation with the owner of Waverley Hills.
Wow.
About doing it, and she knows we want to do it next year. Tina Matley knows we want to do it next year. I'm struggling with the whole flight thing. That's the only thing that puts me off is the flight. If I can go over the flight thing, I'll go to that. But
is it enough of a pull for you to get on that flight?
I don't know. I hate flying. Honestly, I hate flying. That's why a couple of months ago I went to Spain on holiday, because it's only a 2-hour flight. I do not like flying. So I don't know how I'm going to go over that one.
I think sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and go for it. And it's generally not as bad as you make out, or what your brain thinks.
Yeah, I think maybe I just need to go to sleep. Get on the plane and go to sleep.
Well, when I looked into going over to see our Jay, who is lining up some amazing places for when I go. I mean, God, I don't think I'm going to be sleeping at all if I go to Jay's house. For one reason or another, between the moonshining and investigating, I think I'm going to come back wrecked. There was like a 3-hour stopover in Munich, and then a 13-hour stopover in Canada, in Toronto.
Wow.
And on top of that, you had like a 13-hour flight. I was like, that's going to take me a whole day travelling. It's going to take me a whole day. It was like, yeah, but it's going to be great when you get here. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like a whole day travelling.
Well, I mean, that's the thing as well. It's you would need to make it so you were going from you've got to be going longer than a week.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, you need to be there at least 2 weeks.
At least
2 weeks. So I mean, and even if we went to do Waverley Hills, it's one night we're going to be there. Just one night. So we've got the rest of the 2 weeks to fill up, which I'm sure we could if we wanted to. But it's getting the timing right as well. So we have to get the timing right for it.
Yeah.
Because obviously I've got children, Julian and Jodie have got children. So we need to figure that out as well.
It is the kid factor. Where do you ship the kids off to while you're off jollying, as my parents call it?
Well, I'm very lucky. My eldest daughter is 24, but my other 4 children are all teenagers. And I mean, they all have their own lives. Essentially, they're all doing different things, and they're all busy with other things, and so it makes it easier for me if I want to go somewhere. I can sort that out pretty easily. I probably feel guilty, but I can sort it out. But I do feel a bit guilty sometimes when I leave them.
I don't feel guilty at all when I leave my children. I'm not going to lie. I love it. I love having my time. Does that make me a bad mum? It's a bad mum alert right there. I'm going to see you later, kids. Mummy's off.
My kids would just be like, see ya, Mum, did you leave the bank card?
Yeah. Yeah, mine aren't at that age yet. They're a bit young still for wanting money. They still try and cane a little bit of chocolate and stuff out of me, but we're not quite into the leave your bank card behind and have a nice time.
Bank card stage.
See, another place, Kayla is in the chat room. She says that she'd like to go to New Orleans. That's on her bucket list.
Wow, that'd be an amazing place, wouldn't it?
It would be. The problem is, I always seem to forget with America the distances between places.
Yeah.
As well. So, like, even if you went to America, wherever you go, it's hours travelling to different locations that you want to do. You know, then none of it's close together, really. You know, if you have a bucket list of things you want to do, you can guarantee that it's spread across the entire America. I mean, Mark Manley on a Friday, he wants to do, I don't even know. He was muttering about, I don't know, one of the routes. He wants, right. I don't know if you've listened to the Friday show, but me and Mark, he wants me and him to go and, you know, hire out a Winnebago, is it? A big camper van-y type thing. Yeah. Just me and him, and actually do one of the haunted routes in America. And I was like, God, that's a television program right there. Will I kill him before the end of the road? Do you know what I mean? It's just, he goes, yeah, it'd be great. We'll just get a camcorder. He said, you'll be able to do the filming. I'll do the driving. I said, honestly, I don't think we'd last a day without wanting to throttle each other. Well, it would just be hysterical. I just think it would be hysterical. I'm putting that out there. That would be a really good TV show.
Need to do that, actually.
Oh, you can come with us. You can break up the fights.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll play referee. I'm good at that.
I bet you are with teenage children.
No, but it's one of those things. It's whether or not the pool's there for you to do it or not.
Yeah.
So, but I think you should do that.
Yeah, well, I don't encourage him too much because he gets very excited when we come up with ideas, does our Mark?
The other one I have always wanted to do is the Bell Witch. I would love to go hunting for the Bell Witch.
Mm-hmm.
I really... And no one else is up for that.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I'll come with you.
It's like Pendle Hill. Every time I've mentioned Pendle Hill, they go, oh, that's camping, I'm not doing that. And I think, well, why not?
Oh, yeah, so the camping. Can't we have a, camper van?
Well, there you go. I went 2 weeks ago and I stayed in a log cabin.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. As long as there's a bathroom.
And it was cheap. It was so cheap.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. I had a great time. That's why I'm going back.
That's what puts me off about camping, and that's why I don't do camping, is I will not get up in the middle of the night and cross a field to go for a wee or have a shower, because by the time you've had a shower and you've got back to the tent, you're dirty again.
Well, I suppose.
So I like it. I like it in the... Oh, Kyla's coming to the Bell Witch as well.
Oh.
We could do a girls' trip to America, couldn't we, Kaz?
We could do that.
We
I'm
could.
up for that.
I think we should. A Parasearch event, girls' road trip to hunt the Bell Witch.
Yeah.
Do you think it'd turn into the Blair Witch scenario?
I guess, isn't it?
Although I have to say, every time I do a haunted woods, or we're in the woods in the middle of the night, I have such the urge to do the iconic snot, torch, hat. Yeah. I'm so scared. I'm not, but I'd like to just recreate that at some point, I think.
That's too funny. I could actually see you doing that.
I think so. I think it would need to be done at some point, definitely. So anyway, going back to you, because we've gone on to general topic, just general chit chat now. I didn't do it last time, Andy Emma. We was in Clapham Woods, and we was laughing about it, but I didn't actually record it. But we did, with the camcorder. We did do it last time. I do it every time I go to a woods. I'm not going to lie. You did De Grey Street, you said.
Yeah.
What was your impressions of the De Grey Street?
Do you know, I got into a really awkward situation with that, actually. Because Like I said to you, I don't like to research where I'm going. So I basically had heard about the most haunted house in Hull, contacted someone else and says, what's this house? And they said, 39 Degree Street. How do I get in touch with whoever owns it? And it was actually a friend, Maxine, who got it set up for me for us to investigate there. Now, we went there, and the owner of the house, Andy, met us, and it must have looked really, really awful, because he wanted to give us a tour of the house. So he's taking the team round the house and telling them this, that and the other thing, and I kept taking off and going away from him. And it must have looked like I was being really rude. But all it was is I didn't want to listen to what he was telling them.
Yeah.
Because then it's in my head. I didn't want to know. But it was an interesting house. I would go back to it. I would go back, but that night, I have to admit, it was very quiet. It was very quiet. But you do sense that there's something there. But it was very quiet.
I've heard mixed reviews about it.
There is one room that I wasn't keen on. But that's because when I set up this group, I made a blanket ban on Ouija boards. I don't like Ouija boards.
Okay.
I just think that that's a whole heap of trouble. So I won't entertain them. And they have a room in Degree Street called the Mirror Room. And there is a table in there and somebody has written a Ouija board on it. So because I spotted this Ouija board on this tabletop, I didn't like that room. But I didn't like the room as well because of all the mirrors. It made me feel quite uncomfortable, actually.
Okay, let's have a talk about Ouija then. What have you ever used a Ouija board?
No.
And so where do you think your reluctance to use it has come from?
I don't know. I think I remember vaguely. I mean, must be really going back. I think there was a conversation. Like I said, my dad always said to me, there's no such thing as ghosts and spirits and blah, blah, blah. But there was a conversation when I was a teenager, and my father saying to me that his mum and my aunts had used the Ouija board years and years ago, and he thought, mess about with things like that. And I think that's kind of stuck with me. But I've always had this feeling of, you don't know what you're going to get if you're using that. But I suppose you could say the same with anything else, but there doesn't seem to be any control. Do you know what I mean? And I have been in a situation in another house where I've been mimicked before, and the Ouija board comes across, it gives me this bad feeling. It's always gave me a bad feeling. But I do vaguely remember this conversation of my dad saying, I'm sure it was his mum and his sisters, he said he'd used the Ouija board, and he thought, why are they messing about with stuff like that? So maybe from that.
See, I do use the Ouija board.
Yeah.
And I do think that if you put the right, or say the right things, and put the right boundaries on it, then it's just a tool like anything else.
Yeah. Well, it's one of these sticking points between, yet again, Julian likes to use Ouija boards. I won't use Ouija boards. So I've kind of come to the conclusion now that if he wants to go off and use a Ouija board, if we're off investigating, then that's his choice. He can do that. If anyone wants to join in, that's their choice.
Yeah.
My choice is I'm just not going to. I don't know.
It's all down to personal choice, definitely.
Yeah. But for me, I've never entertained them. I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know.
So is there anything, when you're investigating, I know you won't use the Ouija board, but do you do any experiments or anything whilst you're out investigating?
We will do table tipping, we'll do glasswork, we'll do, I've got pendulums, we have trigger objects. if we kind of trigger objects from the actual place, that works a lot better. But we will do lots of things. We will do most things. I just seem to have this sticking point with
Ouija.
With the Ouija board, yeah.
So when you're sort of like looking at places, are you particularly drawn to anything specific? Like, do you like old castles, or do you prefer outdoors, or do you prefer, anything specific? Do you feel like you're drawn to a more specific time period or something?
I don't actually feel that I'm drawn to a specific time. I feel that I kind of get a sense in my head of where I want to go. And somewhere, there's so many different places, but we've been to abandoned places as well, abandoned churches and all sorts. I do actually like churches quite a bit. I will say that I do like churches, and I've been to a few abandoned churches that were really good. But no, I don't feel there's a specific thing that draws me. It's just, if it was up to me, I would be in a different location every week, but it's just not practical to do that every week. So, I would go anywhere. Anywhere except woods every week. I won't go to woods every week. I maybe go to woods like once every 3 months. But thing about woods, I don't like woods.
Well, if I can't get into a location, then I will definitely do a wood. I'm not fussed either way. Do you know what I mean? I like both as much as each other from a personal perspective, and it's free. So if you can get to a wood, it's a great thing to do. It's difficult to investigate a wood properly at times, but it does fascinate me, though, going back to how you work. You'll do all these other forms of like divination, but you won't use a Ouija. It does make me chuckle, that does.
I think it's got to stem from that conversation. It must stem from that conversation.
Yeah. Maybe you should burst that barrier and have a go.
Maybe I will one day.
Be a bit braver.
What I find quite comical, I can say this now. My father passed away nearly 4 years ago, but my dad has always said there's no such thing as ghosts and spirits and blah, blah, blah. And my dad is the most open man I've ever met in my life. He just knew so many things before anybody else knew it, and I'm sitting thinking, you're saying all this and you do basically the same thing I do.
Yeah.
So
it's usually the way.
I don't know if maybe there was a bit of fear with my dad about Ouija boards, and it's transferred to me. I don't know.
Possibly. It usually comes from somewhere like that, doesn't it? Or a film you watched when you were younger, or something along those lines that has put that I won't touch that kind of thing. One thing I won't do is read from a book I find in a deserted lodge in the middle of the woods. If I found a book there, then the weird writing, I wouldn't read in it. I'm not going to lie. I've watched too many films where the Evil Dead coming back to me. Do you know what I mean? Now, if it was an Enid Blyton, of course I would read it, obviously. But anything that's got like weird writing in it, if I found it in a deserted lodge in the middle of the woods, I wouldn't read from that. I've learnt that lesson from a horror movie. That's for sure. Now, do you do private investigations as well as like public location investigations?
Well, I've been to different people's houses. People know if they want me to go to the house and have a look around, I will. And we've done that for people as well. But obviously, whatever we do that, A, we're not charging any money. We're just doing it to help them. And B, whatever we do when we're in the house is between us and them. We don't share any of it. We wouldn't make that public. Whereas, like, if we're going to Degree Street or whatever, we're fine to make that public, but the private stuff we won't really share. So, but we do it, yeah.
Okay. And well, obviously you find you work in a completely different way when you do private.
Yeah.
What sort of things do you look for when you're doing your private?
See, people will probably go, oh, really? But first thing I always ask is about kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Because having 5 kids myself, I know kids attract a great deal of energy. And I've actually noticed little things like with one of my daughters, if she's upset, you're guaranteed something electrical is going to go off in the house. I always ask about kids. What I won't do is, if we're going to someone's house, I won't go into the house when kids are there. I'll always insist the kids are out of the house.
Yeah.
I'll always insist that pets are out of the house if it's possible, because I'd rather they weren't in there. But I tend to, people I have went to the houses, I tend to speak to them quite a bit about everyday things that are going on, because it could be something else that's just triggering things, energy, do you know what I mean, in the house. It doesn't necessarily need to be a spirit. There could be other things going on. So I tend to get into quite in-depth conversations about the day-to-day runnings of their lives.
So when you do a private investigation, do you build up a case study? So you go in and you talk to the people and you build up a case study and you look at, psychological factors, medical factors, any problems within the home, in relationships, that sort of thing. You actually build up a picture before you do anything else.
Try to look at different things, because as much as saying that I know spirit's real and I believe in spirit, you can't put everything down to being paranormal. You really can't. I mean, I've had days in my home where there's been 101 things going wrong, and it could be 2 of the girls are in a bad mood. It's their energy, and it affects different things, and it can affect things in your home. Like I said, one of my daughters, when she's upset, electrical things fail all over the place. Absolutely just will not go. If she's in the room and she's upset, they won't go. And that's her energy that's doing that. So that's not paranormal, that's just stuff that's going on in the house. So I'll look at that too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Lots of different things, isn't it, on a private investigation to a public location investigation. It's a completely different ball game, isn't it? See, I'm definitely coming round more to wanting to build up a case file, as it were, in one location rather than do lots and lots of different locations. I love doing different locations, don't get me wrong, but I'm also moving more to wanting to work on one specific location and build up that whole picture rather than flitting around and just doing a bit here and a bit there. So I'm hoping that the opportunity for that is going to come very, very, very soon. Sort of that's where I'm at with my paranormal journey, I suppose you would call it.
Well, interesting you saying that. I mean, a couple of people I did used to work with, who they live in Nottingham, and there's lots of weird things going on in their house, but when it was looked back into, I believe they did some research, and they came back to me with the research, and it turned out where their houses are actually built, there was this great big battle, and there was a lot of people actually killed in this battle, but it's going back a long, long time. Mm-hmm. But apparently quite a few people in that street are complaining about strange things going on in their house. And that's in one street in Nottingham.
That's worth looking into, darling.
I know.
You want to get into every house, build up your case file. On that note, we've actually come to the end of the show, would you believe? It went really quick, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It wasn't as bad as you thought.
No, it wasn't. It's actually enjoyable.
Well, we definitely got to know you a little bit better, and we hope to hear a lot more from you. Before we disappear, is there any particular topic that you would like to do a show on? Is there anything specific you yourself would like to do a show on?
Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is, obviously we did the show last week about EMF, and the week before that was talking to Brian Holloway about phone apps.
Yeah.
And it got me actually thinking, I mean, yes, we have all this techie stuff, and we do use this techie stuff, but are we being a bit lazy? Don't you think we're relying too much on techie stuff? People aren't using their instincts as much, or trusting their own feelings enough, and they're relying on the techie stuff.
I agree with you on that. I do agree with you on that, but then I work and you work in a spiritual way in the field. But what we'll do is we will do a show just on that on a different occasion, because as I say, we have actually come to the end of the show tonight. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on the pop-up show. And we look forward to hearing a lot more from you on Parasearch. And no doubt we will do that very show that you want to do, darling.
Okay, thank you, Kerry.
Thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you all for joining us in the chat room. Don't forget, you can catch up with all of our shows on podcast through Spreaker, or we're also on YouTube. And if you have anything you'd like us to discuss, you can contact us through our website or through our Facebook page, and that's Parasearch Radio. Thank you for listening, and I bid you all a very farewell good night. Good night, Kaz.
Good night, Kerry.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.